So we're looking at a Nate Fuentes stream. Basically Tate talks about how the fact he's not a Jew just because he says you're a loser if you're basically in your basement complaining about all your problems and blaming the Jews. So it looks like he's a little bit sensitive that he was called basically a Jew, and he's pandering to Nick Fuentes.
It is extremely optimistic to put all of this monumental failure down to some degree of ineptitude, when truthfully, it is a managed decline, and it is very purposeful, and they're doing all of this on purpose. Let's assume that all of that is true, which is the conclusions I came to also, and the only answer I found for this was trying to implement a degree of individual exceptionalism amongst my fans, saying, look, it's all fucked. You need to get as rich as you can, as strong as you can, as charismatic as you can. You need to be uncancelable. You need to have people listen to you. You need to go out there and show that you're not afraid of them. Individual exceptionalism was the only answer I came to combating all of this.
Look, I'm all for that. I think Tate, when he talks about, having ownership over your financial issues, going to the gym, that's all good. But I don't think you need all that misogyny, man. Honestly, like the 15, 16 girls, are they all lying? I don't know. I found that rich that he talks so much about Jewish people. Then you find out, I guess his girlfriend in California was Jewish. How does that cognitive dissonance work? Then I saw his lawyer file like a $50 million lawsuit against this Jewish girl. And he says something like irreversible damage to his global reputation. What reputation, bro? You're largely known as a human trafficker. I mean, have a little bit of self-illusion, some self-awareness, little bro.
These things. Is there another answer? Was I wrong? What else can we be doing? What else can we be encouraging people to do? Because everything Nick has said is completely correct, and I've known it for a very long time also. If you think a political party is going to fucking turn this shit around, you're out of your mind. So what is the answer? What do we tell people at home to do? What is the solution to this problem?
Have to engage in politics. Have to engage in politics. A lot of people are very down on it. People say, well, we're not going to vote our way out of this. No, but if enough young people who are brilliant get involved in some way, either they become rich or they become influential, in 20 years, we will have a different class of people that are running the show. And, maybe if nothing else, I mean, this is how I sort of imagine it in my mind. We need to create a cadre, a revolutionary class. And by that, I mean, we need lawyers, professionals, entrepreneurs, money people, political people that when called upon, when summoned, can go to Washington, D.C. and run our society for a revolutionary new regime. Because we effectively had that opportunity with Trump. I just think about it from my experience. Trump won the election in 2016, and he had no gang. He didn't have any niggas with him. It was just him. So it's like, who do you run the Treasury? Who do you run the State Department? Well, you got to fall back on who's there. And that's Wall Street. That's the bureaucracy. That's the usual suspects. That's because they're...
It's just sort of sad to see how Myron and Andrew Tate, despite the fact they're black, how they pander to Nick Fuentes, even Candace Owens. I mean, this is a guy that openly says the N-word over and over and over. He straightforward says he wants a white America with nothing else. Europeans. And they just pander to him. It's crazy to see. I'm not going to say how much Tate fell off, but it's undeniable at this point that he has dramatically fall off. And Nick Fuentes is getting promoted by liberal media. Why? Because he's helping destroy the Republican Party and divide it. And who else is supporting Nick Fuentes? The Chinese Communist Party. He's the perfect tool. He's the perfect useful idiot. He's a instrument. He's like a missile to destroy our society without actually firing a missile.
Was no cadre. They had this idea that they would, they had a website called greatagain.org. They were going to solicit resumes from all the hillbillies and hill people of America. And there are obvious reasons why they trashed that or whatever. But a big reason is they didn't have the personnel. There was no political will. They didn't have organization. So I'm a big believer in people need to create this revolutionary class. That's kind of been my project. And, before we get going, though, everybody in the live chat's asking about Vance. Can we talk about that before we all wrap this up?
Yeah, absolutely, bro. I'm hanging out. I'm going to continue streaming after this, so I'm not in a rush. I know, Andrew, it's late for you, Andrew, so I know you might have to go. Nick, I'm going to be here anyway, so if you want to stay on, you're more than welcome. And we could chop it up more about politics. But yeah, we could definitely talk about Vance if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering because we kind of touched on it earlier, and Andrew,
That's why,
you kind of.
That's why I asked you that question. I was looking at chat. I was like, well, that's
Yes.
why I asked you to with Vance. Yeah. Well, go ahead. Take it
Well,
away.
and Andrew, you said that you and Tristan like Vance because Vance is an advocate for you guys in Europe and Romania. So that's why I wasn't going to lean in, but I do just wonder, what is your position on Vance? Do you support him, or what's going on there?
Well, it's the infinitely divisible problem. I mean, I'm not going to lie and pretend I know as much about him as you do. You know a lot more about him than I do. You seem to know his sources of funding and all these things. And I don't like to preach ignorance, but it's true. You know a lot more about him than I do. It's a matter of he is the only one who is sticking up for Europeans' rights to speak freely. He is the only one who mentioned what happened in this country where I have Romanian children. He's the only person in the entire American administration. He was all over wall-to-wall news in Romania, and the Romanians were very afraid of what he was saying. He's the only one sticking up for people in the UK and the ability there.
Yeah, I mean, I have a home in Germany. It is definitely an issue, in regard to Andrew. My wife is German, and I'm in Miami now. But when I'm in Germany, where I also have residency, there's no doubt about it that you can see that there's also a very far left woke pagan mob that are just largely taking control over the media there. I mean, if you think the woke leftists have gone hard here in the United States, I mean, they've really gone hard. They basically have let the migrants, I mean, you look at Paris and London, they're essentially occupied cities at this point. And what's scary as an American that has a home abroad is that it could come here to the United States. I mean, just look at the Chinese Communist Party's preferable candidate, Mamdani in New York. I mean, that's a financial capital. That's a big Western capital like London. How many more of those capitals until, society collapses?
Complete lack of the ability to speak. Now, I'm not saying that everything else he's done is perfect. I'm not saying I know his history inside out, but I am saying on a base level, initially, what he is saying, I completely agree with. Perhaps when that battle is won, then the infinitely divisible problem, once, perhaps if Europe gets turned around and he doesn't have to talk about that anymore, he might say something else I disagree with. But what I've seen of him on the issue I care about, I'm 100% aligned with him. So now you can easily say, but did you know his money came from that? I didn't know. What I did know is that he was the one who was wall to wall in Romania saying what you're doing here is garbage and bullshit. So I support.
It's crazy to see how much Tate is actually on his knees asking, Fuentes for approval. I mean, because at the end of the day, it's like, a white nationalist, racist cult that basically hates foreigners, looks at women like dogs, right? And he sort of needs Fuentes. It's just sort of astonishing to see Tate like a fanboy, and his popularity's largely fallen off. But yeah, it's pretty crazy to see.
Or his view he had there, and I respect the fact that he was the one sticking up for us here in Europe. And I'm not saying he's a perfect person for the same reason I respect Elon for freeing us all on Twitter, and I completely disagree with him on a lot of other things.
Yeah, it is amazing. Without Elon Musk doing that, I mean, 2024, I was completely shadow banned. 2022, I got kicked off TikTok for holding a Chinese Communist Party accountable with 784,000 followers. I could tell you 2024 election year, I look at this as the eye of the storm. 2025, 2026, 2027, you're going to start seeing suppression, censorship, cancellations come back during the next election year. And if AOC wins, we're going to see lawfare and censorship with AI like we've never seen in the United States. So this is the eye of the storm. This is just a brief recess where we're getting our free speech back without suppression. And that's largely thanks to President Trump, Brendan Carr, and Elon Musk.
Perhaps maybe it's just, I'm an older man. Perhaps it is what it is. Perhaps I like to be respectful of people who I think are doing the right thing on some issues. I'm not going to pin him down on every single thing he does I disagree with when he's doing something important that I do agree with. And that fight's not over yet. Until that fight is over, until those orcs are slayed, I just want to let him to do what he's going to do because no one else is doing it. That's my very simple view.
I think we got to slay the elves. I'm more worried about the elves than the orcs. We got to slay the dark elves, if you know what I'm saying, metaphorically and politically. I disagree. And I think that in 2027, the Groypers are going to overthrow Vance. Steve Bannon actually went on his show and he said that he might run in 2028 because he doesn't think Vance has what it takes. And I'm with Bannon on this one. because Vance is the connector for Silicon Valley. That's how he got the VP slot.
I mean, eventually it's going to be interesting to see Bannon and Fuentes go at each other. Liberal media likes to promote Nick Fuentes, right? It's just when he trashes Trump, he gets help. If he talks about the Chinese Communist Party in a flattering way, you could pretty much assume he's going to get, views on TikTok. Potentially, it's pretty crazy what's going on.
That's what gave him all this clout. That's how he got in the Senate. He's the connector for Elon, for Peter Thiel, for David Sachs, for that whole crew. And maybe you're not interested in all that. And look, you have a different perspective. You're in Europe. I know a lot of Europeans that are super pro Vance because he is an advocate for those guys. On some level, I understand because you are in another country. I get that. But at least in America, this guy's a big problem, literally and figuratively. He's fat and he's like a major problem. So big, conceptually. And so for me, I said this the other day, 2027, the Groypers are going to descend on.
One reason Nick Fuentes doesn't like Vance, I guess, is because he supports Israel. He has a wife from India. Now, there was a recent list that came up of the countries where the immigrants who started the most billion-dollar-plus companies in America. The number one country was India. The number two country was Israel. India has like a 1.3 billion population. Israel only has like a 6 million population, 13 million, something like that. Small, right? Israel and India were the top countries of immigrants who came to the United States and formed billion-dollar-plus companies. So when someone says, why do we have these Indians? Why do we have Israelis or Jews in our country? How about all those jobs they create? And they hate them. And it's sort of sad. And to me, what's even crazier is that Nick, as a closeted homosexual, I think, and a Mexican, how he talks about immigrants. It's just disgusting. And you can see why the Chinese Communist Party promotes him.